Hi, what's up? It's me. Please go check out the previous part to gauge your bearings. I am connecting a story here that was in the halfway mark of itself. So you're gonna have to see the end of that previous part to gauge this one. But I was explaining to you guys in my previous part just the epidemic of man caving that causes men to disregard feelings of women. And in so doing, however, in front of their friends, they disregard feelings of women in front of their friends, but they then also do this ambivalence to their own desires or their own personalities. And only when they're alone with the women do they then default back into the thing that they naturally are. However, not first before not standing for the women. I was telling a story of my ex-boyfriend and how it is that we got into an accident because of my anger after he disrespected me in the club. He didn't disrespect me, his friend did, basically called me a whore in front of him for like he told my ex that I'm drunk and I'm going to basically make for an easy hit that night while I was with him at that stage for like 3 years. So I expected my ex to stand up for me. Instead he ignored it. I blew my top off and I left, right? I was gonna let him drive. I was drinking, he was sober. I was gonna let him drive us home, but on the way out, headed to the car, passing by the bathroom, some dude in that area comforted my ex upon hearing me basically brawling and complaining. And he was like, "Kulega boy, on some relax, these women," and them throwing their toys out the cart, frankly. And my ex, instead of shutting up or telling this guy to mind his business, was like, sure. In other words, he acknowledged, he received comfort, and so therefore basically confirmed in so receiving such comfort that he has no regard at all for the fact that I'm brokenhearted over what he just did. And this caused me to blow my top off and refuse to let him drive my car. I was like, it's my car, I'm driving. I would have driven off without him if he didn't quickly hop into the passenger seat. And then I got into an accident where I hit a puddle of water because I was accelerating my vehicle, and this puddle of water, because it caused my car to lose control and head towards another car, I swerved away from that car and the car spun. Thankfully there were no other cars inside, no human beings that could have gotten hit by a car just spinning right on the spot, and my car was miraculously stopped by a street lamp, and that's why it was erect and still drivable and did not topple over. If it had hit a pavement, it would have toppled over. My ex then, at that stage, there was silence for like a minute. I was sobbing and crying, following which my ex then basically just wore an anger that he generally does not wear. He does not, he was a very temperate, calm dude, and he kept on telling me get out of the car, and I wouldn't get out of the car. He got out of the car, stood up, and was like, get out of the car from a standing position. I still wouldn't get out because I was busy sobbing. And then he hit the top of my car on some, get out of the car. That's when I jumped and got out of the car. I understood where his anger was coming from. Plus, I'd never experienced any aggression from him in the past. I nearly killed her. So, I mean, really, it was absolutely understandable why he would raise his voice at me at that particular stage. He was never the kind to do that. I would be accusing him of crimes he didn't commit to say that he was verbally abusive or even the kind to be aggressive, right? So, when then after I sat in the passenger seat, he drove us home. I was sobbing until I basically fell asleep while he was driving. I did not see him ever stop garaging. We eventually arrived at my apartment. He parked, and once we were parked, I told you guys that my ex never ever called me Karabo. It was always baby or whatever. But that time when he was angry, get out of the car, whatnot, it was my name that he used, type thing. But something changed, something in him, just to help you understand the ambivalence that dwells in these guys who literally changed their entire personalities to accommodate a man cave, a bunch of brutish grunting males that are advising a guy that's frankly just got it right when it comes to loving his women, but this dude is busy trying to please the needs of a selfish, disgusting bunch of little baby boys at the expense of his girlfriend, and how he ultimately loses her. So my ex's core personality was at war, at odds with what it is that his friends were trying to groom him to rather become. And so en route home, while I was sleeping, sobbing, whatever, in the car as he drove the rest of the way back, something caught up with him, and I think he woke up and realized that he was essentially the first domino that tipped, that got me to that place of wanting to drive home despite being drunk, even though he was the designated driver, the perfect one. He had a driver's license. If the police stopped us, everybody would have been sober, right? He would have been we would not have been arrested or whatever. I nonetheless took that irresponsible decision to be the one to drive despite being drunk, and he understood that he was the domino that tipped. He knew that what his boy said was unacceptable, and him embracing the chanting and the celebrating of his disregard of my pain by some other random stranger, him taking it, saying sure, yes, that it added fuel to the fire, made life worse. This all, I believe, just came to him. He realized that both of us could have literally died because he refused to stand for his girl. So by the time he was nudging me awake to go into the apartment now, he stopped being angry. He wasn't like, "Karabo, fine, sfigile, asingene endlini." He was like, "Baby, we've arrived. You know, we're here. Let's get inside the house." At that stage, I got out. I was still very drunk, very, very high. I wasn't high. I wasn't like smoking, but I was drunk. And I staggered along into the apartment, and I was angry. I was still crying. I was still furious over what under heaven happened. I only got uncomfortable and guilty in the morning, right? But at that stage, I was still literally hanging on to what in the world under heaven I just experienced. And I was like, "This is your fault. This is your fault." And I didn't want to sleep in the same room as him. I was like, "You're not sleeping with me." I had a 2-bedroom apartment, right? The main bedroom was where it is that we slept. The second one was just there for decoration. It was ornamental, but it had a bed in it. And I was like, "I'm in the other room. Like, go sleep in the other bed. I don't want you near me in my bed." I tried to sleep in my bed. And my ex, like I told you in my previous parts, he never let me. I remember the story that I told you where it is that random Jezebel chick called him at like 2 a.m. in the morning. I got upset. He slipped out of bed to take the call. When he came back, we had a fight, and I told him to go sleep on the couch. And he was like, "I'm not going to sleep on a leather couch, Gabanda." So we wrestled in the bed, basically, with me trying to push him off the bed and him like trying to stay in bed, until ultimately after 40 minutes I gave up and I slept. And in the morning, like, I woke up basically in his like arms type thing. That's how my ex was. He never capitulated to my anger. He never allowed me to get my way finally. Whenever I told him get out, leave, he never left. He just kind of stuck around and cajoled and poked at me until ultimately I just calmed down and let him stay. And like I say, I also made mention of the scene where we were sitting on the couch. I was upset. I was on the left and he was on the right, and I was like, "Keep the gap, please. I don't want you to touch me." And he kept on shuffling close to me, poking and prodding, until eventually I let him be all up in my grill. And I was complaining in that video, in that part, that some people might think it's romantic and he's just very loving and whatnot, but that was the way that my my ex resolved issues with me without actually resolving them. We never spoke about the thing that upset me. He just hugged me back into silence, but never ever did we ever talk about things. Never did we ever resolve issues. And so for him to silence me with hugs and kisses, and yeah, it was wrong, because the thing that once I was quiet, I still had the issue, and these things just packed up and packed up and packed up and packed up. It was a strategy that he had with me. It's how he used to handle me. It's how he made me keep quiet, shut up. Yeah. And yeah, well, it worked until just it got to a point where it was like, "I'm sorry, like, Lana, I'm just going to be a very unhappy woman with a man that doesn't want to listen to me, hear anything that I have to say, but he's pretending like he's listening." And you know about that peace, and the way that he establishes peace is by just simply ignoring that I want my own space, get out, and he wouldn't get out until I just let him stay. Okay, yeah, that's what was going on. And he did the same thing that night. He never apologized for what he did. We never even spoke about the problem that caused that issue, but he hugged his way back into the situation, and I fell apart because of it. So I was sleeping in my bedroom. I was like, my main bedroom did not have a lock on it. I was like, "Ahamba uyolala." This time, because there was a second bedroom, he didn't have to go on the couch. I was like, "Sleep in the second bedroom," right? Like, whatever, go sleep in the second bedroom. And he was like, "No, I'm not sleeping in the second bedroom," type establishment thing. He came with me in my bed, and I tried to push him out, and he just kind of like stayed there, just remained frozen, and he had better strength than me. He was a man, so there was no way I could ever prosper to push him off the bed. So I got up out of that bed to the second bedroom, and when I got up out of bed to that second bedroom, he quickly jumped out of bed and followed me, and I tried to sleep on the floor and block the door, and he kept on, like, you know, when a person is standing and then you push the door open and then they slide on the floor, basically being like a mop. It's not funny. I was angry. He basically prospered to slide me like a mop before I could lock. That door had a lock, and I wanted to lock, but before I could successfully lock, he opened. And I sat on the floor to, you know, try and basically prevent him from opening. And I failed. I had no strength in comparison to him. And he was able to make me mop the floor with my bum and my whole body, trying to sitting, lying on the floor on the door to get him to get out, right? And it was at this particular stage when I was busy, I guess, getting mopped on the floor. By a door that he's pushing open. That that he slipped in flowers. No, it wasn't flowers. It was like a little teddy bear and a what do you call this thing? And a rose, right? One rose and a little teddy bear. Basically, garages in South Africa, they sell these weird little paraphernalia that you can buy, like little teddy bears, little heart, little cards, little whatnot. He stopped at the garage. I did not feel him stopping because I was like out, right? Because like, you know, I was drunk. I didn't feel him stop go garaging, but he had stopped and he had purchased this small little teddy bear and this flower to basically apologize. So he got an attack of conscience driving back home and decided that he's gonna like make this work. He's going to make amends straight away and not even wait until the morning for us to talk about this, because he got that he was wrong. That was his way of apologizing. And when I saw this like teddy bear and this little flower on the floor, you know, I didn't cave or capitulate, but I took it and I was like, you can't keep doing this. Like every single time, Jeffela, you think you can shut me up with flowers or you can shut me up with whatever. You know what you did. Why didn't you stand up for me? Your friend called me a whore. Like what? That's the reason why we got into that accident. I'm still angry at this point. I have yet to apologize. I took these like this little teddy bear and this flower and I just kind of like, you know, like I like, you know, on the floor. They were on the floor because he slipped them in. I like pushed them out in a way and they landed in the lounge somewhere. And I went, because he wouldn't leave me alone to sleep in that second bedroom, I locked the door. I then went to the main bed and I just slept. Okay, like I slept. I was like, whatever, fine. If you want to like bombard me with your presence, fine. I let him then come into bed and yeah, sleep with me, right? Okay, I slept. I was lights out very quickly because like I said, I was drunk. Type establishment thing. And when I woke up, the I guess the flowers and the little flower and the teddy bear was still on the floor in the lounge, like he never got it, type establishment thing. And it was upon waking up that I was like, oh snap, like I nearly killed us. I was now sober. So because I was sober, I acknowledged my part in the travesty, the abominable thing that happened the night before. And the first thing I said to him was, I'm sorry, like because I nearly killed him. I nearly killed us. I essentially forgot, I got over the thing that I wasn't supposed to get over. I got over the fact that his boy called me a whore and he did nothing about it. I got over insisting on an apology. I got over insisting on him acknowledging his part in the matter, and I took full responsibility for everything that happened. We never spoke about that incident again, and he was content with that. That's just the way that my ex was. Rather than say sorry, rather than say, look, I should have stood up for you. My boy was out of hand. He shouldn't have done that. He was out of line. He shouldn't have done that, and I'm sorry that I should have stood for you. That would have been far more comforting. Instead, I caved because I had nearly killed us. It's like I imagined the thing that I did loftier than the thing that he did, and the acknowledgement of the fact that he was the first domino to tip, I no longer insisted that it be given. And it is the sweeping under the carpet of such issues as this that ultimately caused us to break up once and for all. Eventually, right? The little teddy bear and that little flower, it just worsened how bad I felt, how guilty I felt. I just looked at this guy and I was like, he's so sweet, he's so loving. He thought to buy me a like a little flower and a teddy bear despite nearly having killed him, and I forgot about what he did, or I made myself forget about it because of what ultimately happened. Never spoke about it again. Okay, well, I mean, just like that, here is a man that keeps on getting away with his friends disrespecting the living daylights out of me, and he obviously is struggling to stand his ground in front of them to make it clear that this is my woman, and I had just let him, you know, hug me into silence again. I mean, goodness gracious, you know, do you see the psychological manipulation in that? Do you see the toxicity levels in a relationship like that, where a man just that he does not want to admit or acknowledge where he went wrong? He would much rather just keep on coming back tomorrow and the next day to see if you're calm. And now that you're calm, fine, at least I can sit down and have a pizza without you being all up in my grill about something you're uncomfortable with. A refusal to acknowledge wrongdoing evidences that you don't even think what you did was wrong, or evidences that you're not even trying to correct this thing, because that particular kind of behavior never stopped. Such things where I would get disrespected by his friends, or such things where he would treat me like trash in order to impress a friend, and then next thing, when it's just the two of us, he's doing a much better thing. It just continued to happen, like over and over and over again, until eventually, I guess, the whole situation that we were in was dissolved. It was dissolved. It was ultimately all dissolved. But yeah, that same day, in the morning when we were busy talking, I said, we both acknowledged that in that incident, so the main topic of discussion for the day was the accident and not so much the thing that happened in the run-up to it. And we both acknowledged that we felt a very physical presence in the car during the time when it was spinning. I was drunk, he was sober. So no one out here in these streets can say like alcohol or drugs were responsible for what was going on there. And he said that he could feel a presence in the car. And I told him that when I was trying to put my feet on the brakes to stop the car from spinning like that, I felt something remove my feet from the brakes so that I don't hit the brakes. And he was like, you know what, if you had hit the brakes, the car would have just like rolled like right there on the spot. So whatever it is that you feel stopped you from doing that protected you. We both came to an agreement that we both felt the presence in the car that orchestrated events in such a way that we would get out of that scot-free. I came to the conclusion that it was God, and he came to the conclusion that it was ancestors. He said ngabadlozi, and I said not so much ujesu but inkosi. I said kimudim, and he said give my ancestors. At the time I was in Christ, I wasn't saved, so I didn't really know to reject ancestral worship and whatnot. So I was like, maybe it's both. We ultimately got to a conclusion that both our ancestors and God was in the car. But I was the one to first say it's God, and he was the one to first say it was ancestors, and then we reached a concession. So because I believed it was God / ancestors, that since we reached a consensus on that, I imagined that I was told from that day, and I felt like indeed I was told from that day that you must drop alcohol, period. You have to stop drinking. There is a problem with alcohol in my family. My dad is an alcoholic. I have another family member that's an alcoholic. My uncle's like, there's just an issue with puza. So I was like, okay, I guess so. I wasn't a drunk. I only drank alcohol on the weekends in partying or anything like that. But I felt like I was told from that day to stop drinking alcohol, right? I'd already stopped smoking at that stage for like maybe 2 years. And I was then now told, now it's the alcohol. It's almost as if though prior to my redemption, God made me drop habits that would make it very easy for me to now be a Christian type thing. So I felt like I was led and to stop drinking, period. My ex had already stopped drinking. I told you guys that, right? So we became a sober couple. Anyway, whatever, right? Cool beans and bananas. Despite that conviction, the next weekend, my cousin came over with her boyfriend and we were hanging out in my apartment. Her boyfriend and then my boyfriend and I, and they brought Savannah's, and I wanted to drink the alcohol, right? I wanted to take a Savannah, tell myself that whatever it is that I felt, it's nothing. And guys, at that moment when I wanted to brush off that I was told by God, a being, that I should stop drinking or it'll be the end of my life, I felt threatened by this being. When I wanted to drink with my cousin, I'm a Savannah, I felt something tell me, if you drink this Savannah, you will die. Proper. Like, I felt something tell me, if you drink the Savannah, you will die. Not so much from drinking the Savannah, but that it's going to lead to events that are gonna kill me. And the fear that I felt from that presence that I felt convicting me of that caused me to be like, no, it's cool, I'm deciding to stop drinking. And my cousin was like, okay, you're not gonna last, but anyway, I guess it's a 6-pack just for me. And that indeed, that first weekend where I went through it without drinking alcohol would then mark the very beginning of my life as one who doesn't drink at all. I had to only get past the hurdle of not drinking that one weekend alone, and then the rest was history. And because my ex was already a non-drinker by then, it was easy for me to stop, because we were now like a sober couple. Both of us were non-drinkers, both of us were sober, both of us could drive to and from clubs and parties, and none of us would ever get issues with the police, the JMPD, or anything like that. So we both then became designated drivers. I started being the designated driver of my girlfriends. If we went out on a partying night out, I was the one that was driving because I was always sober, and my ex and I used to interchange depending on really how I'm feeling. I preferred for him to drive because I wanted him to, type thing. So yeah, that is how it is that I stopped drinking alcohol. But that whole thing was leading me to the Lord Jesus Christ. So in the part prior to this one, not the previous one, but the one before that, I was talking about how it is that I went to this event that I fought with my ex. So okay, let's talk about this, right? This incident where I was in this accident with my ex, but both of us came out scot-free, and we both felt like there was a presence there, and he thought it was ancestors, I thought it was God, and we eventually agreed that it was both. I explained that whole story to help you basically get to a point of understanding what in the world is being done to men who want to do better, who want to basically be kind of godly or godly. I wanted to help you understand the epidemic currently and the downward spiral of it, and the fact that it is leading to the last days, the end of the world. Pretty much we are in the last days currently, and that the people who are going to escape, like, just capitulating to this disease of moral degradation because of an increase in lawlessness. The love of many grows cold. It is written in Matthew 24. The only way to escape it is by giving your life to Christ, because literally it is irresistible. As irresistible as the grace of God is, so too is it irresistible in the absence of embracing the Lord, embracing the gospel, to get darker. And my ex only waxed worse from there, and the only thing that prevented me from waxing worse was the fact that God wanted me. So all these things that had happened, the Lord at that stage wanted me home, and it was the perfect time for me to be called home. Literally at the same time that I was being called home, so too was my ex being called home. It is written in God's word that many are called but few are chosen. Both of us were called at the same time. Like I said, we both had conviction that there was something in the car that protected us, or someone. He had conviction that his ways concerning what his boys are doing are messed up and they're costing his relationship. That was God telling him, this is grace. Dude, you can see what you're doing is messing you up. You love this woman and you can't be without her. Every time you hurt her, it hurts you. And there is just so much patchwork and fixing up that you always have to do, bending over backwards, trying to calm down a woman that is literally throwing her toys out the cart because you've messed up. Stop messing up. You know this is it. You have abandoned alcohol for her. You abandoned drugs for her. You abandoned the Jezebel that you imagined you were very violently in love with for her. You acknowledge whenever your boys hurt her in front of you that you have done wrong. You keep buying teddy bears and whatnot for her to shut her up when she is upset. This is a woman you can't afford to lose, and you know it. So come with me. The two of you. Walk away from fornication. Walk away from lust. Walk away from this worldly carnal lifestyle. Look at both of you. You are both sober. When you started dating, the two of y'all both were cigarette smokers. Both of you used to take other recreational drugs. You both were alcohol drinkers. And now at this point in your relationship, I've groomed you both to enter my kingdom because you don't drink, you don't smoke, you don't do drugs no more. And now your girlfriend does not drink and does not smoke. She's never really been into drugs. And you are at the perfect point to leave that worldly carnal stuff behind that has been causing all of these earthquakes and tremors, shaking it up a storm in your relationship. Leave it behind and I will give you glory. I will give you joy, both. I will give you happiness. I will show you what it means to actually live a life abundantly. I have prepared you to, at this point, enter into heaven without too many issues. I brought a woman, dude, into your life that has been so ride or die and stood by you despite your material weakness, stood by you to help you get raised up out of complacency. For crying out loud, at the age of 26 when you met her, you couldn't even drive. And don't nobody know what a man is doing not driving at 26. And she taught you how to drive. You now have a driver's license. You now got a promotion because apply from that job. You have basically graduated from one place to another. Now, tell me what under heaven was a force that ever came into your life that motioned all of these things on your behalf? When did you actually start to improve as a man? When did anything of yours get better? When did you start gaining weight and stopped being so skinny? When did the dryness in your mouth leave your mouth because you stopped taking drugs? When under heaven did you finally have peace, rest in a relationship where you felt like you didn't have to commit crimes in order to please women so you can make more money? When did that happen? Who has been responsible for bringing you to this juncture in your life? Was it any of your boys? Was it even your parents? Was it your sister? Was it your cousins? Was it your employment? No. Literally, all the changes that have improved you as a man came about because of one woman. One woman completely did a 180 in you. She came into your life ole ukhoba, osa drive, osna koloi, osna chelete, osebetsa call centering, ole unambitious, otuba the drugs, onwa bojwala, ojaiva every weekend, non-stop, not realizing that you're getting older. She came into your life with you having absolutely nothing, and now 4 years down the line, going on 5, look at what under heaven she has done or achieved in your life. Your mother is besotted with her because she transformed you. Was Tswatswa responsible? Was Sizwe responsible? Was Zama responsible? Was, basically all these friends that cracked the walls in our relationship. The Lord was basically telling my ex at that same time that he was talking to me, has anything that you have disrespected your girl over been responsible for giving you any of the things you have gained in the past 4 years? And this man could not, with any level of honesty, answer, yes. I was literally solely responsible for the transformation in this man's life in a way that no one could deny. Not his friends, his family, thankfully, did not even try to deny it. They made it clear that, what name did I give him? Nonti or Nonti? Nonti. You can't afford to lose Ukarabo, because it was because of her that your life got given any kind of motion. She came into your life. Boy. His family, especially the women there, they kept on singing my praises like a beautiful choir. But he decided to listen to men that were trying to keep a man that was already too stagnant for a man, too slow in growth for a man, to ignore a woman that motioned him. I don't even understand why none of my man's boys just kind of raising the boy, I'll moto, I'll drive, you're not driver's license. Let's go. So get in my car. Let's teach you how to drive. Why didn't his dad? Why didn't his own dad be like, son, you can't drive, I'm gonna teach you? Why did not his best friend be like, Nganwam, this Saturday we are going to some felt, we're gonna teach you how to drive? It was when I came in that I realized my ex can't drive. Because one time I was like, babe, don't you want to drive us home? And he and then I asked him, get in the steering, get in the driver's seat, please drive us. And that's when I realized that he starts the car, and then Wastola, the car kept on stopping and starting. I was like, whoa, he can't drive. He was embarrassed to even admit that he can't drive. So I did not put him to shame. I did not make him feel small or whatever. I basically then made it my mission, my responsibility, to every single weekend when we meet, teach him little by little. And I first started with my sister's car, but then my sister came back and she was using her own car. For about a year in our relationship, I did not have a car. And then once I bought a car, then my vehicle became his driving school. He never went to a single driving school or paid anybody. It was my car that was being driven, and it would stall until ultimately he drove a kilometer, and then 2, and then 3, and then he got his learner's license, and then whenever we would go everywhere, he would be the one to drive, and I would sit in the passenger seat. And that's how my ex slowly but surely got to where he needed to get. None of the men in his life were concerned as to why a 26-year-old man doesn't have a driver's license or even drive. Nobody. Motion. Like, I don't know if I did not meet my ex when under heaven he would have ever gotten a driver's license. I literally don't know. And God was showing him all of these things. He finally got to a point where he got a car. I spoke about that in one of my other parts. He finally did get a vehicle, and on the day when he got the car, he gave me attitude in showing it to me instead of us celebrating that he reached a milestone. And I'm like, whoa. Literally, like I said, at the same time that God was pulling me out of the world, he was pulling him, but he got dragged down into the world. He was very gullible and credulous. He allowed, like, despite having such incredible grace and evidence to see that I can't lose this. No. My ex-boyfriend made a decision, do you understand, to go in a path that was obviously destructive, because the voice of his friends was apparently allegedly much more mellifluous than mine. I was being so badly bad-mouthed by bad men who keep bad-mouthing imedi zabangan babo, because nobody wants any of their boys to be with the best girl in town. And all of them got to marry women that they disrespected because these women never woke up, and he lost me. And mind you, all of these women that they got to marry, these main chicks of all of these guys, they did not have to deal with the level of panel beating and transformation of a man that I endured. None of them had to teach their man how to drive. None of them had to get their man to basically get up from a bed of needles and start to run instead of just like allowing himself to roll around on and getting, inflammation in his buttock. None of them had to keep on pushing a man to apply for jobs. None of them had to basically get a man off drugs so that he would stop afflicting his insides. None of them made a man go and get tested for what is this? Like, how his brother passed away from cancer. Every year I would get him to basically get screened to make sure that there's nothing going on in his body. Nobody cared enough to make sure that this guy is moving from strength to strength to strength to strength. None of these women had to do that much work in men. I was the only one on a sebeta, like insha. ukunikeza i-boyfriend yami ikamva, so the two of us can have a future. And the reason why I worked tirelessly like a dog for my man was because he had such a rare quality of respect, honor, and love in him for me, that I imagine that if I can get this man to a certain level materially, I will have everything I've ever wanted in a man, because he has got certain things right. He's extremely romantic, he's temperate, he's loving, he is this and that. So fix this, get him his license, push him to basically get his career improved or start his business, get him this, get him that, blah blah, get him off drugs, improve him as a human being. And then on that day, you've got this full package of an absolutely adoring, loving man that gets points that many men just don't get, that relieves you, that relaxes you in the union that you're in, because he's just so serving. And on top of that, he's killing it, he's making money, he's rolling these streets looking like a successful man. Top of that, he's not entitled. Men sometimes because they feel like as if though because they've got money they don't have to have virtue. I imagined that I was going to get literally the best of both worlds. I hung on to him because who in the world is going to love me like this? Atella, because driver Hammer, because driver Mercedes. Atella, because he's got a beautiful apartment. Atella, because he's got an excellent career. Who? I found somebody that has loved me in a way that I've never been loved as a woman, respected me, honored me. I've never in my life kissed a man that did not try to grope my boobs and my butt, but kept his hands off my body out of respect. I've never experienced anything like that, and I'm not about to let it go. I am not about to let that go. I had never in my life met a man that loved his sister like that, his mother like that. The level of respect and honor for the females in his family, I had never seen that. Black men are just so disrespectful, and they just don't care. They are tactless. And my ex, he used to call his mom every day despite living at home with her from work, and his sister every day they used to talk. My ex was, black community, people here don't hug, they don't kiss, they don't tell each other they love each other. It's like we just get through life. In the black community, it's uncomfortable that way. It's unfortunate. Not everybody, but it's just generally an epidemic. And when I observed my ex with his family, I was like, I'm not letting this go. Kind of person to, like I said, call his sister Unjani, aliko skolong, nah, I'm cool, this and that, blah blah blah. Total protection, total care. And at the end of the conversation is I love you, hugs and everything, kisses. I was like, I don't know this. And I'm not about to let it go, because I am lamenting in my own core and in my own spirit that I come from a black community worth of relatives and friends that just are not loving. And I have met somebody who's got, he's gentrified in the way that he is. Huggy, lovey, apologizey, non-aggressive, email sending, adoration giving, just such a sweet, I'm not letting this go. And then, so therefore I invested my might in it. And then this guy makes a decision to completely dump his whole personality at the door in order to make men happy. That he is now a man like King Kong on a mountaintop, bashing his chest, saying, I was like, wow. God told him, get out, because they're going to make you a monster. Look at what this woman has done in your life. And he was like, no, you know what? I'll keep the boys because I prefer their praise rather than the comfort and the relaxation and the ease of my wife, of my woman, of my future, basically wife. I'm not about to let some woman tell me what to do. And I'm like, where were your boys when you were busy birthdaying 26 without a driver's license, dude? Why did none of them go out of their way to teach you how to drive? And now you have met a woman that did that for you. Where were they? And today he is married to a woman he doesn't love, and all of them got to marry the rechte tsa bona that didn't even work on them. They found them ready-made. They found them driver. They found them banal di career. They found them. His boys were pretty strong materially. They were. It's not like they were all a bunch of scrubs. My boyfriend was the scrub. I don't want no scrub. A scrub is a guy that can't get no love from me, hanging on the passenger side of his best friend's ride, trying to holla at me. He was always that guy, and I took him. The woman prior to me that passed him up, it was precisely because out of all his friends, he was the scrub. He was the one onadula kochai with his parents. His boys never used to live at home with their parents. They had their own apartments all over Johannesburg. He was the only one that was like a little child among them. And I rocked up and I made him the kind of man that other women would want. And he chose his friends his boys the approval of men that had nothing to do with his rise to prominence, and he passed up or treated like trash the woman that was there with him from the very beginning. And there is so much regret in him today that he cannot deal. And he can, yes, after we broke up, I some years down the line, because he was busy afflicting me with witchcraft, I googled his name, found his Twitter account, went in, saw him at some restaurant hanging out with this one couple that we used to hang out with, but he was there by himself. And this couple, the boyfriend, also put witchcraft on our relationship, the man and the man component of that couple. And I was like, look at you hanging out with, let's say it was Tepo and Polaila. I was like, look at you hanging out with Tepo and Polaila by yourself. A couple of years ago, you, Tepo, me, Polaila were at a restaurant in Melville having lunch as couples, and now you're having lunch with them, Uliwan, and he's still with Polaila. And lo and behold, Tepo went on right ahead to marry Polaila, and my ex had to go and settle for somebody else. Literally all his boys that caused him to fall apart in his relationship married Dimedi Tabon. He's the only one that lost me, and the sorrow that he is in, the pain that he's in, his friends are now guilty for it. They made him disrespect these women. All their girlfriends did not have to work like dogs to build them as men, for they were ambitious in and of themselves. And so they told him, don't let a woman tell you what to do. And here it is now that he's the only one that lost her, while all of them got to marry them. Let's move to the next part.